Okay, so let's dive into a really fascinating but kind of scary psychological trap that affects so many leaders. It's this powerful, unspoken force that keeps even the most successful people feeling totally alone, pushing them straight towards burnout without them ever really knowing why.
You know that feeling? It all starts right here. That quiet, nagging voice in your head that says your struggle is unique, that you're the only one who's just barely keeping it together. But what if what if it's all just a big misunderstanding?
So how does this lie get so powerful? Well, it usually starts in a place that probably sounds pretty familiar if you've ever been in a leadership role. It's all about what we call the performance of success.
I want you to picture this. You're at an executive dinner. The wine is great, the steaks are perfect, and all around you the conversation is just buzzing with wins. Revenue's up, the team is killing it, we closed the big deal. You know the drill. On the surface, it's all perfect. And you're smiling, you're nodding along, you're playing the part.
But what's really going on? I mean, underneath that polished exterior. The reality is, you're fighting a silent battle. You're barely sleeping, your home life is strained, and honestly, you're terrified you're about to lose your grip on everything. But you would never, ever say that out loud. Not here.
And here is where it gets really interesting. You feel completely alone in that moment, but the data tells a totally different story. A huge survey from Deloitte found that nearly 70% of C-suite leaders have thought seriously about quitting their job for one that would better support their well-being. 70%.
So think about what that actually means. If you're at that dinner table feeling completely overwhelmed, the odds are incredibly high that you are not the only one. Multiple other people at that same table were likely fighting the exact same battle, hiding behind the exact same performance. But silence.
So why? Why does everyone stay silent if so many people are feeling the same way? Well, this isn't just a coincidence. It's a well-known psychological phenomenon. This collective lie, it actually has a name.
It's called pluralistic ignorance. It sounds kind of academic, but the idea is actually super simple. It's basically a collective illusion. It's where everyone in a group secretly disagrees with something, but they all assume they're the only ones. So everyone just goes along with a group norm that almost nobody really believes in.
And this is what it feels like from the inside. You're thinking, I'm struggling, but you look around and assume they're all fine. You feel like the pressure is crushing you, but you assume they're just handling it with ease. You're screaming, I need help on the inside, while you assume everyone else is absolutely crushing it.
And this thing, it feeds on itself. It creates this powerful, self-reinforcing trap. First, you see other people acting strong. So, step 2, you assume that's the expectation. Step 3, you act strong yourself to fit in. And that, right there, reinforces the exact same false belief for the person sitting right next to you. It's a vicious cycle that just locks everyone into silence.
And this isn't just about a few awkward dinners. This quiet little dynamic scales up, creating a massive, but almost entirely hidden, crisis right at the very top of our organizations.
I mean, the scale of this silence is just staggering. When executives are faced with real mental health struggles, an absolutely overwhelming majority feel like their only real option is to just leave. Not to talk about it, but to walk away.
Just let that sink in for a second. 4 out of 5. That's 80%. Resigning from your job feels like a safer, better option than just admitting to your colleagues that you're struggling. This isn't about people being weak. It's about a collective culture of silence that makes being vulnerable feel completely impossible.
And here's the real kicker, the paradox at the heart of all of this. Research shows that executives are actually more likely to experience symptoms of depression than their own employees. So despite this outward performance of superhuman strength, the pressure at the top is taking a huge, disproportionate toll.
Okay, so if we're all caught in this collective illusion, this cycle of silence, how in the world do we get out? Well, the good news is, the solution is actually pretty simple. It just takes a little bit of courage.
For the author who wrote the piece that inspired this explainer, the whole thing changed when he finally just hit a wall. He crashed, and he started talking openly about his burnout. And what he found was incredible. His story wasn't special at all. The second he started sharing, other executives started pulling him aside one by one, saying, "Me too." And that one simple act of honesty blew the lid off this huge gap. The gap between the perceived norm, which was this invincible, always-on leader, and the actual norm, which was that most people were just barely hanging on. That gap is where pluralistic ignorance lives, and being vulnerable is how you close it.
And this is so critical, because a leader's silence doesn't just hurt them. It cascades, it trickles down.
An MIT study found that when a leader was burned out, guess what? Their teams show way higher rates of burnout too. It makes sense, right? Everyone just mimics the leader's supposed toughness, and the whole culture turns into a pressure cooker.
And that's really the punchline here. This entire illusion, this whole collective lie, is actually incredibly fragile. The spell of pluralistic ignorance is broken the very moment one person has the courage to speak up and just name what everyone else is secretly feeling.
So, all of this brings us to the most important part. What does this all mean for you? You know, right now, in your job and in your life.
Look, the whole point of understanding this isn't to wait until you hit your breaking point. The goal is to prevent it, to recognize that the intense pressure you feel to always project strength is probably a collective fiction. It's not the actual reality of the room.
And so, we're going to leave you with this one powerful question to think about. The next time you're sitting at that table, nodding along, playing the part, just ask yourself this: what if you're not the only one? What if everyone else at that table is struggling too? And the only thing keeping this whole illusion alive is that nobody wants to be the first one to tell the truth.